or go to. Can you hear me? We're just doing a final check. The curtains in the back, your blinds in the back. Could you close? Because we can't really see you. You're really the backlit. Your blinds. Can you?
Okay. Give me a second.
Not a problem.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, yes, I can certainly hear you. Let me try to take care of that. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Good. So glad. Thank you for being patient with us. We were just getting logged in. We're getting set on this end. And we just wanted to make sure. Just say something that we can hear you.
Sure. I'll say something so you can make sure you hear me.
Yes, we hear you coming in loud and clear.
All right. There are other people who may be participating remotely beside myself. I'm the
Based off
only
of
one.
what the email I from Miss Hazel, you were the only one. Other folks will be participating via the live stream, but you're going to be one of our commentators or sharing your perspective. Um, you all were the only three that were listed that will be our panelists that will be interacting. But we sent the
I
live
got you.
stream link out for everybody else to view.
Thank you. I got it.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, we not at a funeral now. We at a celebration. Good afternoon, everybody. There we go. That's that Trojan spirit and pride that I'm looking to hear from. My name is Wes Bellamy. I'm the political science chairman here at Virginia State University. We are extremely excited to have you all join us today for a very interesting conversation, to say the least. And I would be remiss if we didn't first ask you all to give yourselves a round of applause for traveling down today. Thank you all for joining us for this trailblazing conversation here for celebrating our Founders Day. A couple of folks who we really want to make sure that we acknowledge. Our president, President Makola Abdullah, I think he'll be joining us shortly. But if we give President Abdullah a round of applause, please. All the great work in which he's doing. Our wonderful VP of Institutional Advancement, Ms. Hall, for all of the great work in which she does. The actual program curator and the man who made sure that this came to fruition, Mr. Franklin Johnson. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. As well as Mr. Lyons, our senior fellows, Ms. Hill, excuse me, our Hill fellows, Ms. Hill, and everyone else who's in attendance. Thank you all for joining us today. We are joined by, again, some trailblazers, to say the least. I am personally elated and excited to have this wonderful panelist group here. I think some of them said that they're from the classes of, the late 1960s, early 70s. I think it's actually the classes of the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's you. Yeah. Well, I know that black don't crack. So, I'm really excited to hear from you all, as well as get some tips on how to keep looking so good when we get a little bit older in time. But nonetheless, we believe that this conversation about organizing, activism, protesting, today, yesterday, the present, the past, the future, is of utmost importance, specifically for our young folk today, to understand that activism isn't a new phenomenon. And I am really glad that we have one of my favorite students. She would like to say that she's my favorite, but one of my favorite students, Miss Daysani Singleton, a senior from Maryland, joining us today and leading this conversation. She is actually was labeled and received, excuse me, earned, not received. She earned the award of Activist of the Year from our NAACP chapter here on campus. She is a freedom fighter through and through, one of the boldest and most intelligent young women who I've had the opportunity to get to know. And I'm really, really happy that she's here. So thank you, Daysani, and looking forward to your comments. We have one of our dear brothers joining us via WebEx. You gotta love technology. Now, I don't know if y'all were in school when y'all were in Anderson, people could join from home while being here. They couldn't do that. They ain't have that in '02 when y'all was here. We get it. But now, through the advent of technology, we have our dearest brother, Mr. Khalil Abdul Rahman, joining us. Let's give Mr. Khalil Abdul Rahman a round of applause. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you
I
so
was just
very
gonna
much for
ask.
allowing me to participate.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us. We really look forward to hearing from you, as well as two other trailblazers in the fight for activism here at VSU, who we cannot wait to hear from. First, let's give a round of applause for Mr. David Bowe, Esquire. Let's give him a round of applause, please. Baugh, excuse me, Mr. David Baugh. Mr. Baugh, don't beat me up now. I see you carry a big stick. I apologize for messing that up. And also the lovely Miss Hazel Bland Thomas for joining us. Thank you, Miss Hazel. We appreciate you. Now, Ms. Singleton has some questions that she wants to ask you all, so I'm going to turn the program over to her. And thank you all, and let's enjoy ourselves today.
Hello, hello. So the first question we have is, can you all describe what activism was during your era?
We did have mics when I was in school. First of all, before I even answer the question, I really want to thank President Nicole Abdullah and Franklin Johnson Norwood, who's the director of um, alumni services, and Tanya Hall, who's the VP of Institutional Advancement, and Dr. Wes Bellamy, of course. And I also wanted to give a real shout out to Brenda Finch Hitch, who is the president of the Northern Virginia alumni chapter, who keeps me tuned into everything. And there's no wonder why they're the biggest and the baddest in the whole country. So, to answer your question, activism during my era is actually not very different from activism today. It's when people of integrity and knowledge and sensitivity, when they see a problem and they decide that they're going to sit down and strategize, map out a plan, and attack the problem systematically and forthrightly. And so that has no age. It has no time. It's as real in 1970 when we did it as it is today. And so I have great admiration for the young people who led the Black Lives Matter movement. And we call it a movement because it's a continuum, because it keeps going as long as there are people of good conscience who recognize that there are things that need to be done and you rally your support. And it can be a multidimensional effort, as the Black Lives Matter was or is today. But that's what it was. And I can tell you a little bit more later about what we did. I was a follower. This gentleman and Khalil were leaders. But the true testament of good leadership is having good followership. So there were many, many others who were great followers. But I learned so very much. And what I learned at Virginia State from the activism here changed the whole trajectory of my life. And I have been involved in community engagement and empowerment and political affairs ever since. But I learned it here. Thank you.
Oh, well, one thing I learned was, well, first I was drafted into being a leader. I was a follower, and the next thing I knew, I was a leader. I don't know how the hell I got there. But when you talk about activism and fixing things, first, Virginia State taught me, but you don't need a group. Each of you, particularly students as individuals, if there's some wrong, and there are wrongs, you can start a movement with a sign sitting in front of Virginia Hall. You can do that. Too many people, I think, look for groups. They look for leaders. But start on your own. I envy the young students now because we had an issue of saving our school and saving Black education. Y'all got Trump. You got people that support Trump. Trump, every Klansman in the world, in the United States, votes for Trump. So there's something you can do. I was just talking to your instructor over here. One of your objectives, every student at this school needs to be registered to vote. As we get closer to election time, if there are organizations or departments, there ought to be a table out in front of Virginia Hall with voter registration. It's so, I'm old enough to remember there was a time in this country when Black people couldn't vote. When Black people registered to vote, they were punished. Those days are over. Well, they're not quite over, but that's one of your objectives you could do. I mean, there are other things you can organize around, but I would suggest that be a project. And it start with your instructor, or it can start with one student. Find out how to register people, get a table, sit in front of Virginia Hall, and make a damn difference. You really can. And I was fortunate enough to be in the concerned students and faculty. And really, even today, while they were trying to make Richard Bland a four-year school, and we were just talking about that, 20%, Hazel told me, 20% of, yeah, come from HBCUs today. Really. My new doctor, just got her 4 weeks ago. She's a graduate from HBCU. There's still a need for the school, there's still a need for the students, and there's still a need for activism. And you don't have to get an organization. Start it, recognize it, and start it. Just get a table, sit in front of the hall, and make it work. And there are going to be other things that pop up where one person can start a movement. I mean, I read about one movement years ago. The guy's name was Jesus Christ. And it's pretty good. We can do that. So I hope that one of the things you learn in this school is don't wait for somebody to make the world better.
Can you hear me?
No, I can't. Is somebody saying something to me?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you when you speak to the mic.
Okay, sorry about that. The question was, can you describe activism during your era?
Okay. As both Hazel and David have stated, situation was a lot different then than it is today with respect to what the events that were going on campus. And to speak to the last set of comments that David made, similarly, when we came along, there was a student government. However, as various ones of us and those that were beyond our immediate group, as we approached those student representatives, there was not much of a positive response or degree of sensitivity to the issues that our set of students and faculty were trying to get a response to. So in that regard, we had to start from a unrecognized position. And most of our friends, both faculty and students, felt that would be such a difficult barrier to overcome. And it turned out it was probably our best asset because we expressed ourselves in such a way that people responded to the authenticity of what we had to say. So, my brief comments about activism is about identifying a problem, an issue of concern. It has to be sufficiently important. And then you find people of similar minds. It would have been very difficult for us to do what turned out that we were part of had we thought we could take more of an individual type of approach. So, thank you.
Thank you. The second question is, how do you think young people can learn from some of the issue you all faced and its solutions?
First of all, I have to give you a little bit of background because not all of you were there and you may not know the story. Khalil, David, and I were members of well, we were students in Virginia State at a time when Virginia Tech University was under court order to integrate. And they thought, Hazel's opinion, the most expedient way to integrate would be to just take our School of Agriculture. Let's just have a hostile takeover. Take it. Students, faculty, graduate students, everybody. And give it to Virginia Tech. And what happened is, we were just students going along with the program, but we were blessed to have faculty members who were at the top of their game. They knew what was going on, and they coached us, and they steered us in the right direction. And one of the things that they said is this: if you lose the School of Agriculture, because this is a land grant university, the School of Agriculture is the oldest school in Virginia State. You lose. Here's what you lose. You lose all of those PhD professors. You lose the biggest master's degree program at that time was in the School of Agriculture. You lose your School of Agriculture library, which was one of the biggest school libraries at Virginia State. And you lose people who came from all over this region to come to Virginia State to be schooled in the various aspects of agriculture. So we had a connection with the community. Hey, I was an extension agent when I left Virginia State. And 99% of the people whom I worked with were from this school. Because we worked for, this, at Virginia Tech University. So what happened was the organization was called the Concerned Students and Faculty. And that faculty schooled us as to what we needed to do. And so what ensued was a protest. And it was a multifaceted protest. Every day we sent out press releases, every day, to the Richmond Times-Dispatch and to the television stations and to the radio stations. They never once, not once, not once did they ever report the true reason why we were having the protests. They focused on the tertiary issues like extending the curfew and not having to come to Foster Hall to church services on Sunday. Social issues. They never talked about Virginia Tech, and they never talked about the fact that this university is less than 10 miles from Richard Bland College. Richard Bland College, if you don't know, is an outgrowth of the passive resistance movement. What does that mean? Virginia closed down its schools. Rather than integrate, they closed down high schools, and Richard Bland was one of the places that students from the region went. So it was Lily White College. So they wanted to elevate it to a four-year school, but the Board of Education for the state of Virginia has a policy. And the policy says you cannot create another four-year school if you're within 15 miles of a current school. We challenged that. Did we know that? No. The faculty told us that. And so at the height of our protests, we took 2,200 students to Richmond to protest. The media never covered it, but we were able to make an impact. And it all started with just a few people, a few students. Khalil can tell you because he, the physics department of all places, you would think it would come out of political science. Although we did have political scientists, Dr. Hinton and others, but the physics department and the psychology department I mean,
Florence Fowler.
Florence Farley, thank you, in the psychology department. Those were people who led us. And so I just want you to know that just that bit of background, so you understand why we did what we did, and to give you some ideas how we did it. Thank you.
Excellent.
That's enough.
No, that was important. Believe it or not, and we didn't know it. The faculty did. Some faculty, no, they knew it and they helped. But in order to meet their integration guidelines, Virginia said, "Oh, we'll just take all the brown people from Virginia State, from the agriculture department, and move them over there." And man, they're integrated. They were going to cut this place up. And we were told that by the faculty. And we stopped it. And I can't tell you, well, just briefly, I don't think people understand the importance of this place in schools like this. I mean, it is vital to improving America that these schools stay open and they send graduates out into the market. So I forgot the question too.
Can you repeat?
The turf, don't worry about it.
I'm sorry.
Yes. How do you think young people can learn from some of the issues you all faced and its solutions?
Well, first you got to be interested. By that I mean you have the internet. And there are things going on that you must stay connected to the news. You must watch what's going on. And and when you say, damn, I can't believe that, that's when you get called to activism and you make a change. You should make it easy for more people to come here, more people to get educated, and more people to graduate, and encourage them. You, you're like, you've been blessed by taking care of something that grows exponentially to make the lives of everybody better. That's your responsibility. You can't get around it. I mean, you can throw it aside, but it's still your responsibility. If you make this school better, if you make this school stronger, you're doing something vital. And this is kind of stupid, but I mean, it's really vital. And it becomes part of your life. I'm proud to say, since I've been a lawyer, I've been held in contempt 8 times. Yes, I've been held in contempt 8 times. I'm proud because when you take a stand to make things better, you're going to find some people that don't like you. Yeah, and by the way, jail ain't bad. It isn't really. I went there. My first jail experience, I was 16 during the Nashville sit-ins. Jail ain't bad. Don't fear it. Just lie down, go to sleep. A few days, they'll let you out. But make a difference. I can't understate your responsibility to the world, your responsibility to the country, your responsibility to those people who go to school here, because they make the world better. And by the way, don't think you can't. When I was an undergrad, I was a screw up. I gladly admit it. I never thought that when I went to law school, after 8 weeks, I put it this way, I had a GPA that amazed me. I grew up. I understood my mission. And it was part of my education and growth. And I suggested it makes life better. Khalil?
Sure. Well, I'm enjoying this conversation. I'd like to add briefly that this issue of where to start and how to start is very important. And even though, I mean, we can reflect years ago about what happened, what we did, but so much of it was spontaneous, even though we had daily sessions of sitting down, thinking, and talking. And what I'm trying to get to that I hope will benefit, especially students today, is that under circumstances where it appears you don't have too many resources to work with, that's kind of where you find out where people stand on an issue, meaning to say the degree of commitment to the topics at hand. And when Hazel referred to the physics department, I have to say a few words about the physics department because that's where I was. I was within that context. And I would can safely say, had I not been part of that program, I don't think Hazel and David and the rest of the guys would have had much patience with me because I probably wouldn't have had a good reference point. So, what I'm getting to now for students today, you need a good reference point, meaning to say, people that you've come to know, you trust them, and they trust you. And when an issue comes to your attention, you have people you can talk with. You can get some ideas about how to proceed. So I'll give you a quick example. Um, I was caught off guard, actually. I was not among the students on the campus that was known, certainly not a popular person. And I was invited to the junior class meeting, and the people who were planning things asked me to come, and I had no idea why I was asked. And as I listened to the conversation, I found out they were in the process of electing um, people for the junior class. And so they started with the president. And I had no intent on being any kind of a formal officer of the junior class at that point. And then there was two or three sisters who already had a program. And when they said, okay, we nominate so and so for the position of president. So then when they went down the list, my name was in there. I had no idea why that was the case. To move forward in the story, I had been selected as the class president. And then the same three sisters said to the rest of us, okay, now that we have a president, let's go and try to do this thing or the other. And this thing or the other required resources. And I didn't have any. At least I didn't kind of know how, from a position wise, how to do it. So I said right away, okay, there are some of us in the physics department have been given keys to the building. At that point, Colson Hall was the home of the physics department and chemistry. And so when you had the keys to the building, Colson Hall, still Colson Hall, that's a nice sized building. And the physics department chairperson, James Davenport, at the time, had put in place that policy. Students who gained the trust of the staff in the physics department would be given keys to the building so that they could come in here and have a nice, safe, and quiet place to study. So we took advantage of that. Now, so since I had been selected, we took advantage of, oh, well, you guys probably don't know much about this. But anyway, we had certain resources where we could make copies of materials. So I invited the rest of our student group to come into the building because I had the keys. So we would come in there late at night, put materials together, replicate them, and spread them out to the campus. So, in summary, being active depends upon knowing people, not necessarily saying these people are already in this position to help us, but knowing people that you trust and people who trust you. Thank you.
Thank you. The third question is, as Student Activist of the Year, I believe that it's important that our student body is engaged. How would you advise us to keep students engaged and informed?
First and foremost, I think that you have an advantage as well as a disadvantage. The advantage that you have is social media. As we all know, the Black Lives Matter movement was worldwide. That's a tremendous advantage. Tremendous advantage. But guess what? You can't believe everything you read, and you can't act on everything that you see. So you have to have a discerning mind. So, what does that require? It requires that every now and then you read something, okay? Read an article, make your own decisions, decide how you will respond to what you read. Don't just take it at face value. And so I really think that our students, and I am so in awe of the students because they're smart, they're knowledgeable, they're well grounded in many cases, but don't believe everything that you read. Because guess what? It could be fake news. And I go back to what I said about Virginia State all those years before. They put all the fake news, all the fluff in, but ignored the core issues. And so you've got to be able to do a little basic research and figure out the where and the wherefores and the what hows to do things. And I would encourage our students to do that. Um, the other thing that I would encourage students to do to stay engaged is to just Anybody, oh, first of all, I'm to paraphrase Martin Luther King, anybody can be a leader because anybody can serve, right? So think of yourself that way. What can you do? Each one, and I have to focus on the students that are here at this campus. I know that it's a break right now, but one person, to David Ball's point, can make a difference. One person who goes to university can change the course of a whole family. Don't take it lightly. Recognize that you've been given an opportunity, capitalize on that opportunity, and spread the love. So that's what I would say.
Following Hazel, I got Bell's palsy, and half my face is falling apart. Following on Hazel's point is that when you decide to make the world better and it makes your life easier too. It really does. Since I was here in the 70s, my life has gotten better. You don't get stopped by the cops like you used to. Remember when you used to, those of you who are old enough, you worried about driving through Colonial Heights because they stop you. Nah, well, not like, yep. You have to be, your life is better. When you make the lives of others better, you do. And undergraduate school is about growing, about learning new things, about trying new things. All of you, when you came here, you became candidates for leadership. It may not be a big group, but you became a candidate to lead just like Martin Luther, just like people were driven out of bondage. Right now, there are young people who they need to be helped. We need to make the road better for them. We need to make them realize they can make a difference so they don't come up and become dissatisfied. When you go to court now, you still see all these young black kids lining up for doing stupid things. I know 20-year-olds who have been arrested 4 or 5 times. And then some stupid lawyer says, well, just plead guilty. They'll give you probation. You ruined that life. You need to teach young people to make the world better. You need to teach them they can make the world better. Each one, everybody in this school, everybody in all the high schools, they could make things better for other people. And we need to remind them of that. When I'm told that the political science department, we need to talk about the protests and how Rosa. I read this morning that because of DeSantis's ravings in Florida, the schools are having trouble teaching about Rosa Parks without mentioning she was black. Yeah, Rosa Parks, and they're gonna remake history. And each of us need to make sure that history doesn't get remade, that history remains the truth. And remind people of their obligation to the truth. I'm sorry, I'm raving. Forgive me.
And Khalil?
Actually, I don't think I have much to add to what has already been said, other than to comment that the context for trying to advocate for change, um, it varies all over the place. So it's very difficult to make a recommendation, so to speak, in terms of how to. Uh, I'd like to touch on a point Hazel made. I think the starting point is within the individual and what they choose as their frame of reference. Meaning to say, uh, reading an article, whatever the subject matter is, you have to have a frame of reference to begin to make sense of the article that you're reading. And that's on you. That's on the individual. If you don't have a suitable frame of reference, people can tell you almost anything. and you won't know the difference. And to be active, to help other people, you can't do that if you don't have a point of view, if you don't have a frame of reference. So when someone asks you, what can you do? And you reflect on how you might answer that question, start with yourself. Ask yourself, what frame of reference do I use in situation A or situation B? And that's where you can spend a lot of time. And the better you get at that, I think you'll find the better outcome that you can reasonably hope for if you choose to tackle a problem or try to address an issue.
Microphone. I just wanted to say, for those of you who weren't there, um, in the concerned students and faculty, I just want to give you a little bit of the dynamics. Of course, we had, Dr. Farley and Peter Nimini, Dr. Nimini, and Dr. Calvin Miller and others who were the instructors, the faculty who advised us. But one of the most interesting things that I have remembered since then is that you see how Khalil is the calm, easygoing intellect. That's what he was in college. He was a leader that the conservative followership in this university could follow easily because he appealed to the intellect. You didn't hear from me. David Ball was a firebrand. He was a rebel. Do you hear me? He had a mind like a machine gun. You give him a subject, he had 10 responses in 2 seconds. And he always had all these ideas of let's do this, let's do that, let's go here, let's go there. We didn't pay too much attention because he was from New York. And as I said to him earlier today, I used to say to him, can you slow down? I have Virginia ears. You're from New York. I don't know what you're talking about. But he had all kinds of ideas. But the beauty of this is you put together people who have a common purpose and a common ethic. We cared about people, and the people who surrounded us cared about others. And so, with that in mind, we were able to lock arms. We did petitions, we did peaceful rallies, we did marches, we did letter writing, we did all of that towards a common goal. So, just want to share a little bit of the dynamics with you. You didn't hear it from me.
Thank you. Okay, and the last question we have is, what are some opportunities for us to work together moving forward, and how can we engage alumni and get you all to assist us with some of the issues that we are currently fighting for, such as voter suppression and the critical race theory? The critical race theory being taken out of the school curriculums.
Do I have to answer that one first? I mean, you're the lawyer in the family.
I barely heard the question. I'm kind of, okay. I'm asking you to repeat it. I'm sorry. If you want me to go.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what.
Thank you.
How do we help others, particularly the students who have to deal with critical race theory, which of course you don't even learn critical race theory until you're in college, until you're in law school, advanced law school. Again, I think it all goes back to being discerning. And when you have people like Governor DeSantis, whose his whole career is centered around a lie, the absolute lie. And I would say that 2 things. You always got to follow the money. I'm very much involved in Democratic politics. So you want to follow the money. Follow the money. Who's fueling his campaign and people like him? And in following the money, it will give you some clue as to how to approach and attack the problem. And it is a problem. Who would think 50 years later that we would still be trying to figure out roads that we thought we had already gone down, bridges we thought we'd already crossed, and court cases that we'd already won through the civil rights era? We're going right back to those things. Because why? Understand the genesis of this. You didn't hear it from me, as I said earlier. But did you know that black folks have dominant genes? it all centers around the fact that we have dominant genes. And when you put a black person and some other race of people together, you're going to come out with a black person. That's a threat. Don't ever forget that. I told my nephew when he graduated college, I said, what do they call a black PhD? I don't use words like that, but you know what I said. You have to be sure of who you are. Square, flat footed, very clear about who you are and what you need to do to help others. So when you have to deal with the current issues like critical race theory, go back to your school, go back to your high school, go back to your church, rally the people and say, this is how these are some ways that we might deal with the problem. Because if DeSantis can do it in Florida, they're doing worse things in Texas. They're doing incredible things in Minnesota. You wouldn't believe it. The laws that have been passed, the laws that have been passed that reinforce gerrymandering. Mississippi is the worst. There's so much to be done, but it starts with the individual. But there's a lot that can be done with knowledge, because knowledge is power, always has been, and locking arms with others to get things done. So I think we have to do that. It's going to be such a challenge, because when you're dealing with a whole station, a whole conglomerate like Fox that tells people what they want to hear, and there's so many people who believe it, they really believe that stuff, then it's going to be a challenge. But working up with others, I think with NAACP and other organizations like it, I think we all have a responsibility to educate. And I'm going to say one final thing. You know, when I was in school, I had to take philosophy. And I said, who wants to take that? Well, how will I ever use it? Nobody cares about philosophy. All right. Fast forward. Do you know that when you want to win an argument, you have to use logic? What did I study in philosophy? Logic, circular reasoning. So don't discount anything, because the true test of an educated person is to be knowledgeable about a lot of things. Because in this life, you will not know what you will need. You simply will not know. And so just be a student of life and learn from others. Everybody can teach you something. And whatever their station in life, they can teach you something. Keep an open ear, keep your ears to the ground, and try to learn what you can. I've learned from you, and I will learn from others going forward. Thanks. Oh, I
Thank
have
you.
the yearbooks. I'm going to show y'all some pictures later.
Do you have anything to add?
Oh, I don't.
Well, as a lawyer, believe it or not, I have investigated a lot of interesting issues. And one issue, and in fact, I used to teach it to lawyers, is DNA. How many races are there in the world? You cannot look at a DNA pattern and tell race. We artificially created those ports of demarcation so we can enslave people. There is only, white people are the same as you. Indians, they're the same. And we need to recognize, though, if we recognize, they'll just come with another reason to discriminate. But I disagree with Hazel's definition of race. There's only one, the human race. Wait, how many of you have taken that DNA and me test on the computer? Anybody? When you take it, it doesn't give you as an answer a race. It gives you an area of the world in which you lived, that your ancestors lived. I I, I just found out I'm mostly English. It's very depressing. No, it was. I found out I was mostly English. Yeah, on my DNA chain. So we have to realize. I mean, there's still going to be discrimination, but we're all one. If there's a God, he or she uh, made one race, and it's going to make every human being with very few exceptions, are capable of the same things. Yes, and I mean, they can be astrophysicists or chemistry or physics, or everybody is capable. And this school creates people that are in the line to make a difference, to protect life. Um, I'm very concerned that when Trump announces for president, there could be a revolution in this country. January the 6th was a revolution. January the 6th was an attempt to overthrow the U.S. government. It was sedition. It was traitor. It was, and people allowed it, and so it's going to happen again. So you have an obligation, like Hazel said, to educate yourself. What I just told you about DNA and its composition in human beings, don't believe a damn word. Investigate it yourself. Yes, if you want to find out that what I said is true and you're going to believe that, don't take it for my word. Don't take it from somebody else. This generation and those, well, a few of us, have the opportunity to access every drop of knowledge in the world through our computer. Unfortunately, we can also have access to all the bullshit. But believe me, the potential to the access to everything in the world. Just digress. I was doing a case. It was, believe it or not, it was a little bitty case. It had to do with trespassing. Through the internet, I was able to cite a case from England in 1642. Yes, I couldn't have gone to the library and found that case. Computer gave it to me and also gave me the word search pattern. You can act, all the knowledge in the world is open to you. All you have to have is curiosity and a desire to be intelligent. And it's there for you. Sorry.
Yeah. Khalil, do you have anything to add?
No, I think they've stated it very clearly. Thank you.
Thank you all. And before we close out, do you guys have any questions you guys want to ask?
Yeah. I just think that you guys are amazing. I was here in 71 when all this happened, but I don't know that the university understands the importance and significance of what you all sacrificed to make sure that this university stayed whole. Because had we lost the College of Agriculture, we might be a minor school, teachers college or something. I'm not sure that the university and all of its patrons understand the sacrifices you made, because you all, some of you were out of school for a semester. Some people really didn't come back. And I just want to comment that I don't think you have been given your full, honest, due recognition for how you saved this university, how you sacrificed your futures to make sure that people like me didn't have to transfer to Virginia Tech, and people who are here in this audience or maybe on the airwaves could send their kids here or could be here themselves at a full capacity university that we never would have had you not sacrificed yourself. And I want to thank you personally through the God, air, and everybody to know your sacrifice to me has not been fully recognized by this university. And I stand here asking the university to absolutely do that in a more formal way. That's all I got to say.
You. I didn't do what I did back in the 70s for recognition. I did it because it was supposed to be done. And I thought I sacrificed, but I didn't. Uh, Believe it or well, I got a lot of money. I really do. I didn't sacrifice Huh? I do. And even though we got put out of school, Khalil, we got dumped. We came back. We have the potential to come back, but we didn't. I didn't do it for recognition. If no one said thank you, I'm cool. I really am. I'm going to thank you for um, your speech just now was recognition, and I appreciate it. Uh, but you didn't have to do it in the microphone. You could have whispered in my ear, and, and it's the same. But I didn't do it for recognition. I, believe it or not, I did it because it was right. Yeah, I know the difference between right and wrong. And my parents and the school and my classmates made me understand what was right. And I reacted to it. And it wasn't even an involved thought process. It just happened. But thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. See why I say you deserve such kudos. Um, I just wanted to say that I was one of the lucky ones. I had in school suspension. Khalil, David Barr, Cynthia um, Downs, they all had to leave school. Fortunately, Khalil told me the story of how his professors hooked him up. He went to Howard and finished. No, he went to Howard for a year, but they made sure that he had a scholarship, a summer job, housing, support. David from New York, his dad said, "You coming back home?" But he lost a year in school. I just couldn't go out after 8 o'clock at night. So they certainly made sacrifices, and I felt so very strongly that we needed to do this because the university, I felt, needed to acknowledge what what really occurred, because guess what? When the university, well, a lot of what we did was because the instructors said to us, in order for us to maintain our accreditation as a university, we need that School of Agriculture. And so if you fast forward to when the college became a university, the library, the professors, the graduate program, all of those assets helped to move us closer to becoming a university. We didn't know back then that what we were doing would help us to become elevated to a university. But everybody, and I can speak for Gloria Edmonds and Amanda Goggins, who's gone on, Troy Roots and Rosa Lee, and all the others who participated. There were so many who were leaders. Um, they did it, as David said, because it was the right thing to do. I will say one final thing, and that is I have planned to give the university sort of a composite photograph. And in that composite photograph will be some of the pictures from the library. This is Khalil with the President Tucker at the time. And these are the leaders at the table negotiating. And this is when he signed the agreement. We had how many points? 13 points that we were trying to achieve. And we achieved most all of them. And I would like to have a composite picture made. One other thing, I brought with me a few bookmarks. I think I have enough for everybody, but it's a commemorative bookmark so that when you look at the bookmark, you remember what the concerned students and faculty did back in 1970 and what the students are doing today. The extraordinary work that they're doing, working together, making change. And I'm just so proud of them, and I'm proud to be here as well. Thank you.
Thank you.